In the winter of 1959, 9 experienced hikers from the Ural Polytechnic Institute set out on a journey that should have earned them elite certification as Grade 3 mountaineers. Their leader, Igor Dyatlov, was meticulous, a perfectionist known for careful planning and a sense of duty that inspired trust. Every member of the group was young, strong, and disciplined. None could have guessed that within weeks, their names would be etched into one of history's most haunting mysteries. The group consisted of 8 men and 2 women, all in their 20s. They boarded a train heading toward the Ural Mountains, laughing, singing, and taking photos that now feel eerily frozen in time. Their destination, Autopsy Mountain, a remote, snow-covered peak in the northern Urals. The indigenous Mansi people called it "Don't Go There." It was a name the hikers might have taken as folklore, but folklore often begins in truth. After several days of travel, the hikers reached the small settlement of Azai, the last point of civilization. On January 27, 1959, they began their ascent. Diaries recovered later show their optimism. They joked, shared meals, and took pictures in the freezing air. Everything was going according to plan, but as they climbed higher, the weather turned brutal. Heavy snow and fierce winds slowed their progress. On January 31st, they reached the edge of a high pass between 2 peaks, one of them Koletsaikal, which in Mansi translates to Mountain of the Dead. They set up a temporary camp and prepared for the final leg the next morning. Dyatlov recorded that visibility was poor and the wind unbearable. Still, he chose to press on. By February 1st, the storm grew worse. They lost their direction and veered west, ending up on the slope of Koletsaikal itself. Instead of retreating into the forest for shelter, Dyatlov decided to camp right there on the exposed mountainside. Some speculate he made that decision to prove their endurance. Others believe they simply couldn't see how close they were to safety below. That night, they pitched their tent, cut into the snow, and shared their final meal. The photos found on their cameras show smiles, exhaustion, and trust, the calm before something unimaginable. When the hikers failed to return, search teams were dispatched. Weeks passed before rescuers finally located the camp. What they found stunned them. The tent was still standing, partially collapsed, buried under snow. But what chilled investigators was not the scene's emptiness. It was how it looked from the inside. The tent had been slashed open from within. All the hikers' boots, coats, and gear remained neatly arranged, untouched. In the snow, barefoot footprints led away from the camp and vanished into the forest. Something had driven 9 experienced mountaineers to flee their shelter into a deadly blizzard, half-dressed, some without shoes. It defied all logic. The rescuers followed the prints until the snow swallowed them whole. And then they found the first bodies. But that is where the story turns from strange to terrifying. The snow was deep and silent when rescuers followed the trail from the abandoned tent. Less than 2 kilometers down the slope, near the edge of a forest, they found the first bodies, the start of what would become one of the most chilling discoveries in modern history. 2 hikers, Yuri Krivonischenko and Yuri Doroshenko, were lying beneath a tall cedar tree. They were barefoot, dressed only in their underclothes, their hands scraped raw as if they had tried to climb the tree in a desperate attempt to see something or escape it. Nearby, remnants of a small fire flickered out under the wind. Broken branches above them hinted at a frantic struggle against nature itself. Between the cedar and the ruined tent, 3 more bodies were found. Dyatlov himself, Zina Kolmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin. All had fallen facing the direction of the camp, as if trying to return to safety. Dyatlov's body was covered in a thin layer of snow, his jaw tight, his hands clenched as though shielding himself from something unseen. By then, 5 hikers were accounted for remained missing. The search continued for months, until May, when the final 4 bodies were discovered deeper into the forest, in a ravine under 4 meters of snow. Their condition was far worse. 1. Ludmila Dubinina had lost her tongue, her eyes, and part of her face. Her injuries were internal, with broken ribs and massive chest trauma, yet no sign of external wounds. Another, Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles, had a fractured skull consistent with a violent impact. Semyon Zolotaryov's ribs were crushed, his eyes gone. Alexander Kolevatov's body was oddly preserved, but his expression seemed frozen mid-panic. The medical examiner concluded that 3 of them had died from fatal internal injuries that would have required a force equal to a car crash. Yet their skin showed no cuts, no bruises, no signs of struggle. There were other strange details. Some of their clothes were radioactive. Others appeared to have swapped garments after their companions had died, suggesting that survival instinct had taken hold in the chaos. No official explanation fit the evidence. The initial report concluded that the hikers died from a compelling natural force, a phrase that would only deepen the mystery. Theories flooded in: a secret military test gone wrong, infrasound-induced panic, an avalanche, even encounters with something beyond human understanding. Each theory solved one piece of the puzzle, but left others unanswered. The investigation was quietly closed, and Soviet authorities classified the files. For decades, families were left with nothing but grief and whispers. Years later, survivors, relatives, journalists, and scientists reopened the case. The 2019 Russian government investigation concluded that a slab avalanche may have caused the disaster. Yet even modern researchers admit the mystery feels incomplete. The tense angle, the direction of footprints, the silence of night, none align perfectly with any logical cause. And so, more than 60 years later, the mountain still holds its silence. The wind still howls through Dyatlov Pass, carried with it the same cold question: what really happened that night? Perhaps it was nature, merciless and unpredictable. Perhaps it was fear, the kind that spreads faster than frostbite. Or perhaps some secrets are meant to remain buried beneath the snow. As the investigation files read, the causes of their deaths remain unknown. The mountains keep their silence. The wind has long erased the screams, the footprints, the warmth of 9 hearts that once beat against the cold. Decades have passed. Yet every winter, the snow still falls on that same lonely slope, covering the truth once more. Perhaps some mysteries aren't meant to be solved, only remembered. The dead hold their secrets tighter than the frost. If stories like this stir something cold and curious in you, stay close. Because here at Hallmark History, the past is never as quiet as it seems. And before the silence returns, tap subscribe, leave a like, and keep your light burning. Just don't look back too long into the dark.